Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. Now, you know me, I like comic books. However, this time around, we are so outside the panels. There's no panels to talk about at all. It's crazy. How's that? We're talking to a novelist who has written a comic book and a graphic novel down the line. So we're going to bring him on to talk about his new young adult book, As The Sparrow Flies. It is the incomparable. It is Chad Corrie. Chad, how's it going, sir?
Great. How you doing?
Very well indeed. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I read somewhere that you're transitioning from a comic book writer to a novel writer. Is that right?
Kind of both, actually. I started
cool.
out learning to write basically kind of everything. So it's scripts and novels and comics and things like that. The 1989 Batman movie with Michael Keaton kind of got me introduced to doing comics in general.
Okay,
and so that's kind of got my teeth kind of cut in that process. And so I've been writing comics ever since then, along with prose and stuff like that. So it's kind of been a smorgasbord, a mix of different things, if you will.
Okay, cool. So what was it about Batman that got you intrigued in writing? Was it, please tell me it was the writer's strike that made the whole Vicky Vale coming into the Batcave and the Joker being the guy that created Batman that made you think, oh my God, I could write this so much better?
It was a fun movie. If you remember, you probably my generation, back in the day, everything was Batman for, the whole summer of 1989, at least in the States. I'm sure it's the same for you, yeah. And everywhere you go, it's like Batman cereal, Batman T-shirts, Batman, everything.
Batman bats.
Yes, it was everywhere. And so the idea was, this is really crazy cool. That introduced me to the world of comics and introduced me into actually the Batman comics. I knew of him before, obviously, growing up, but I never really read the comics like I did after that. Started collecting them, getting into them, started learning more about the industry, the business. But yeah, the story itself I thought was very interesting. It was kind of a different take. I grew up maybe a little bit like you did too with the 1966 flavor. Nothing, has its own place in history, but it wasn't really what I was thinking of when I thought of Batman. And so that introduced me like, wow, this is kind of cool and dark and gritty. And that introduced me to the concept of writing comics. And believe it or not, we started writing comics, my friend and I, back in junior high, and we even submitted stuff to the big guys. Of course, it never got picked up, surprise. But it cut my teeth into that kind of process, learning more about the ropes and getting into that. And that's when a lot of at least in my neck of the woods, I'm based in Minnesota, so a lot of the places around here began having comic conventions and having comic stores and things. They kind of grew up overnight, it seemed like, in 1989, 1990s. And I started learning more about that culture, community, and things like that, and kind of getting in the whole scene, writing comics, which, believe it or not, is a good transition into novels, because basically writing comics is you're writing a lot of dialogue for the most part, condensed story, which helps you become a better writer as far as structure and pacing and things like that.
I suppose I'm not going to let. I'm not. We'll get to the writing in a second. All right. But you mentioned Minnesota. As everyone who listens to this show knows, I am a huge NFL fan. So you're a Vikings fan?
Oddly enough, no.
What do you mean? Oh, man.
I know. You're not the only person. I got my publisher, one of those guys that works there, is a Vikings fan. He's in Oregon. And it's just like, you like the Vikings? Really?
No, I'm a Dolphins fan. I was just being nice.
Okay. No, it's a great stadium. They got great colors. I like the Viking motif. No, I've never really got into football for some reason, but I suppose I should at some point. But yeah.
Baseball then. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Go Twins.
Go
All
Twins.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So I would have thought, I mean, this is the view from the cheap seats. I would have thought, to an extent, writing comics, especially your first few drafts isn't that dissimilar from writing a novel, in that you have to set your panel layout, you have to tell the artist what you see in your head as you're writing it down. It might not be as prolific as writing a novel where you've got, paragraphs detailing stuff going on. So I understand how it could, it's like cutting your teeth. Which do you find more fun?
It's It's a good question. I often think about it because they each have their own benefits. The comic side, obviously, for the writer is probably the fastest side to write because you're writing, very specific, very quick things because the art really carries the day. It's a, very visual medium, obviously. But the fun thing with that is it's more of a collaborative effort. So you get a lot of people more of a creative construct kind of thing. But that also takes time. Whereas writing a prose novel it's just you and your editor for the most part, and that it's a longer process in the beginning, but it's a more, I guess, structured or consistent visual effort, if you will, for that, because you're not really working with anyone outside of your own mind and your editor, so to speak. So there's pluses and minuses too. I mean, I like the camaraderie with the comic side, but I also like being kind of independent and going off and doing my own thing. But yeah, you're right, you're absolutely right, because you have to, the comic side, you can write a scene and it takes like maybe a couple panels, whereas a book, it might take a few paragraphs to a page describing, because you have to set up the mood, the setting, the lighting, the dialogue, the whole and ambiance of the thing to get it established, and then have the scene unfold. Whereas the comic book is like, here's the panel, okay, that's the scene. This is next panel. It's a little bit different. But yeah, I enjoy both actually.
Cool. I think you're underselling yourself massively on this, to be honest.
Why not?
I do. I think you're underselling yourself. I can read a comic book that's well written with poor art and enjoy it. I can't read a comic book with poor writing and fantastic art, because that's just the poster. So
yeah,
I think you're doing yourself a massive disservice if you think the writing isn't equally as important as the art, from my point of view, from a comic book fan. And when you say that the writing for a novel isn't collaborative, it's massively collaborative. You have to write in a way to get me to think about what you're writing about.
True. Yeah.
You've got to convince me to see what you're seeing. That's a bigger challenge, because you don't even speak to your reader. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you sell a comic book and you can see the art, and a picture tells 1,000 words. Yeah, I get that. But when you sell a novel, you've got to there could be 10,000 people reading this book, and you've got to get all of them to see the same thing that you see.
And the funny thing is,
that's massively collaborative, surely.
And the funny thing is, not everyone sees the same thing. It's always kind of funny to see, because they all have that world filter, that worldview. And it's like, where do you get that from? It's like, okay, that's interesting. It's like, I come up with signings and stuff and say, I like this part. I'm like, I didn't recall putting that in there. Where'd you get that?
Oh, this was by somebody else. Sorry.
They bring their own world to it, basically. Yeah.
Which is great. Because it then makes the story more intimate and more personal to the reader.
Exactly.
Rather than being something that is mass created and mass, I suppose, recognized. You pick up a Green Lantern book, and you say, oh, look, it's Green Lantern, and everyone knows it's Green Lantern, and so on. Cool. Excellent. So, yeah, I think you're doing yourself a massive disservice, just saying.
Oh, well, thank you.
Even if you don't like football.
American football.
Hey, I love American football. It's my passion. It's my go-to, man. I only talk about English football, so I've got something to talk about at work. That's the way it works.
Now, how does that different than rugby, for example?
What?
How is football different than rugby? Is it more aggressive?
No, it's just different. It's like saying chess and checkers.
Okay.
There's kind of similarities.
Okay. I'm kind of curious about that. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that off stage.
Okay.
Yeah. We're outside the panels does sports or something. Yeah. The jock edition. So the book, As the Sparrow Flies, a young adult book. What's the story behind this book? What are we getting ourselves into when we pick up the book?
Well, I guess you can say in a nutshell, it's about a young wanderer who's kind of lost her people and kind of joins forces reluctantly with, I guess you can say, kind of a questioning zealot kind of guy who's kind of questioning his previous zealotry. And they have to find this way through this world that's basically, how do I describe it without giving too much away? It's like post-apocalyptic, environmental disaster kind of thing going on with fanatical factions they got to work through and stuff.
So it's New Jersey, is what you're saying,
or anywhere in the United States. This is circa 2024. But basically, it's just kind of a fun. I want to do like a dying world kind of thing. There's this world that's dying around them, and no one really knows how to get out of it or escape it. Some people have different ideas, they have different concepts, and that's really what that challenge is. And so they're going to find themselves having like a crises of individual faith and challenges what they believe, what they think, what the world's going to be doing. Like I said, the different factions are fighting each other. They got to survive all that, and then somehow find a way to get out of this, hopefully alive in the process. But yeah, it's just fun. It's like I said, it's been around just a couple weeks now. There's the actual book there. Yay. I like it. I'm kind of a big map nerd. I didn't give you that, unfortunately, but there's a nice map.
Hold on, hang on. Let me make the pictures big. There, move it to there. See, this is the sort of stuff I love. I love stuff like this in books.
Well, you're a map nerd, all right.
I love if it gives me a visual help on what Conan used to do it a lot with Bobby Howard. Yeah. So when he crosses the Hibernia to Crimea, you're like, oh, where is that? Oh, let me just check on the map. Yeah.
Exactly. That's kind of the idea with this, is that you're going to be following along. Bring it up again. You'll be following along as you go through the storyline and actually just kind of going all the way across, all the way the world. There's 3 books in the series, and the nice thing is I keep telling people they're already written. So if anything happens to me in the near future, you'll still get your books. No be the end of the world.
No George R. Martin stuff there then. Yeah. So when you get picked up by Netflix, it'll run the entirety.
It'll be done, yeah. So I always tell people it's done. Actually, book 2 is with the editor now, and the cover looks fantastic. In fact, the guy that does the artwork for the covers is a Brit. So yeah, Dan Burgess. He's a great guy. Actually does animation, I think, full time for his job. He just does some art on the side. So he's liking it. He does some great work. Actually, book 2 cover is going to look fantastic as well. What else can I tell you about the book? It's actually got some appendices in there because I am kind of a geek that way too. I like a little bit more information. I got kind of cut my teeth on short stories like you did with Conan and Bobby Howard stuff.
Yeah. You need those appendices just to give it some context, because a lot of writers write as if you already know what the world's about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no one's going to Tolkien it by writing 14 chapters on the length and breadth of an ogre. We're just going to say ogre. You're going to have to assume you know what that is. So appendices can help for the kind of nuances of different worlds for sure. Sure. What is it? When you say post-apocalyptic, people automatically think futuristic.
Right.
Yeah. That's not the case here, is it?
No. It's how do I describe it? It's like fantasy, but fantasy without the orcs and the fantasy tropes and things. So it's human-centric. And
so
it's more
sort of non-fantasy.
Well, it's fantasy in the sense that it's not Earth and it's a different reality, and there's some different beliefs and things and different cultures and stuff. So it's not real world, quote unquote. But it's a different type of experience, if you will. But yeah, there's I think that lends it to be more of a gritty type of story because things are more realistic, more believable. There's no magic, for example. They have different beliefs and religions and things, but it's not like they have ray guns or spaceships or things like that. But they're all trying to find a way to save their planet, which basically is having these challenges, and they suffered through a previous cataclysm kind of thing. So they're all trying to have their ideas, but no one really knows which is the right way, and that's kind of the whole crux of the other plot going on. What is the correct way to get out of this, if there is a way?
Yeah, this is huge. I think when we talk about post-apocalyptic, I can't even say it, the bad stuff in the future, you automatically think has to say future. Now you've added the sword and non-sorcery. That's what it's called, sword and non-sorcery elements to the book. Look at me. I'm creating as I write.
Mundanity. There you go. The mundanity.
Oh, no. It seems to me that there's lots of different influences going on. You've got a quest, so that reminds me of like Lord of the Rings things, but you've got no orcs. So now I'm thinking it's based on young adults. So that's kind of like Shannara, maybe when the Shannara series first started.
Yeah.
And then you've got the whole environment element going on. So we're actually talking real world problems. Those are like lots of different places to flex, Chad. What was it like when you kind of thought, well, I've got this idea. I can see the world outside my window is going to hell in a handbasket. How can I make that more, I suppose, more entertaining and educational for young readers to see, well, hold on, this isn't just happening on this made-up world. It's happening outside your window. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I try to do primarily is when I write, I just try and find fun, entertaining stories. I don't really have an agenda outside of that because I think we need an escape a lot of times now just to kind of clear the headspace, so to speak.
Killed my real world vibe there. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, the real world thing is that the challenges of I guess coming of age, of course, is always a classic in YA, but also coming to grips with what you really believe, who you really are, finding identity, things like that. Also, what you really believe versus what people believe. Kind of finding yourself, finding your place. I'm not going to give too much away with the whole story, but they basically.
So that's fine. Just no spoilers. If we want you to go and buy the book, we'll show you the website later.
There was a cataclysmic event that we don't specify yet that took place previous to the story that actually altered a lot of the planet and the way things work. And so these young people have grown up in this environment where nothing is normal, quote unquote, and everything to them is a new normal. And so now they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we know it's coming down to an end, but it's like, how do we find our way? So one group actually thinks they got to kill everyone and destroy the world to bring it back, which is probably not the best solution, but we'll find out. And the other solution is, to escape it. This is the other group can, escape it somehow. So, that we don't know if that's going to be even possible. And other ones have their own beliefs and their, pursuits and things like that. So that's kind of what we experience as we go through the story is which is right, which is wrong. Is you're right or wrong? And it's like, okay, where do we go from here? And also just a fun, entertaining story. There's action, there's adventure, there's a lot of fun sword play, things like that.
It's funny because I in my real world, in my day job, I deliver. I'm a tutor, so I teach adults, and I do a climate change course, and it's very discussion based, and it's supposed to take a certain amount of time. Invariably ends up running quite close to the time frame because you end up having too many discussions, and it in a good way because it's when we talk about the climate, there is not one thing that you can do, and when we talk about the environment, it's about how everything is so interconnected that if you change this, well, that'll happen. If that happens, then this will happen. And then is this happening better or worse than what was happening when we started? And it's kind of this mosaic jigsaw-like theory that you kind of have to try and piece together.
Yeah, and no one really knows everything about anything. It's like you're like, okay, what you might know, but do you know? And it's like, okay, and then it's like, oh, okay. It's like you said, it's like you change this here. Are you sure on that? Okay, and tweaks this.
I challenge this because I think I know everything about Batman. I'm just saying.
But Batman,
Batman will sort it. What made you want to make it a young adult book?
Good question. Previously, I've been writing a lot of fantasy fictions, things like this, which is action, adventure, epic fantasy, which came out a few years ago, and I wanted to get away from that because I wanted to have a challenge for myself. And so I thought, what could I do that's kind of the exact opposite? Which would be exactly like dystopian, YA world kind of being destroyed kind of thing. And then by making it YA, I thought that's another challenge because I thought, I've done a lot of adult stuff in the past. And I thought, well, let's try and make it YA. The challenge came in with the YA is because I'm sure you probably know too, Twitter and other things. Young people have a different, I don't want to say skill set, but a different view of the world because they haven't had that lived experience yet. And so they don't have a lot of that ability to track a lot of stuff like we do that we've been around a little bit longer, so we have more reference to kind of, figure things out a little differently. So it's interesting to see how they perceive things based on their, experiences and stuff and kind of bring that into the equation. So I was able to, throughout the book, I try to make it, I'm not saying I did it perfectly, but try to bring into the equation how they saw things and how they interpreted things. The story is primarily told through the two young protagonists, Elliot and Sarah, and the opposing factions. And so obviously they have their own, worldview, their own, way to perceive things, but they're seeing things with the adults. The adults are experiencing things differently. They're having conversations on the side and they're telling things, but the kids are kind of getting a different take on it, seeing things a little bit, it was kind of fun to experience that dichotomy. And it allowed me for some fun, nuanced interactions with the adults and the kids and stuff like that. So that was, for me, that was a challenge. Did I pull it off right or not? Well, to see if the people like it when they read it, but I think it was just fun to get that experience going.
It's interesting you bring this up because this is such a great discussion point. Things like social media, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Insta, whether it be Twitter, then kids nowadays have at their fingertips a wealth of information and opinions that you and I didn't have when we were growing up. When you and I were growing up, it was like what your parents said was the way of the world, and that's it. Maybe some teachers, but now it's your parents, your teachers, your peer group, the things you look on the internet, the things you look at in Facebook, the algorithms that make YouTube pick the videos that you watch because you watched the video 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And when it comes to kids and the lack of experience you were talking about, like world experience, it means that their solutions to problems are a lot more immediate than ours are, because we'll take that kind of, well, let's have a look and see what, but they're like, no, let's just do it. And then,
yeah. Well, I mean, you have to admire that's where a lot of that zeal and the energy comes in to what they do, that pursuit of let's do it now. But, what, like you say, you take a step back and realize, well, no, he's just doing that or she's just doing that, X, Y, and Z. Give them a day or two. They'll be different the next day. They don't have that context yet. So that's where sometimes adults can kind of seem, I can understand, kind of standoffish or kind of like, don't want to get involved. Well, there's a reason why, because we were young too. We made some bad choices, bad mistakes, things like that. But yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. Having that the immediacy, and that's also a pressure thing too. I think they feel if they don't act, somehow something bad or terrible is going to happen, or they'll miss the opportunity or something. You're absolutely right, because that social media unfortunately bursts in people that desire that quick fix. I have to do it now kind of thing, and immediacy all the time gets things done. Yeah.
Scary. All right, we'll take a quick break from one of our other shows. So I think we'll go guest choice on this. Chad, I'll run through the ads and you can pick one for us. You've got Crisis in the Toyverse. It's about figures. You've got K-pop Cosmos. It's about K-pop. The Old Timers, a show about retro comics. You've got the Definitive Crusade, which is about DC, and you've got the No Prize podcast, which is all about Marvel. Which advert would you like to see?
Let's try the action figure one. It'd be kind of interesting.
The action, everyone loves the action figure one. It's time for a crisis.
There were so many 80s references in there. That was hilarious.
All right, that's Crisis in the Toyverse with Bobo. The rumor that McFarlane Toys are creating a Bobo figure for their next season of figures is a rumor. However, I am more than happy to start that, for I think that would be class. McFarlane, if you're watching, we spoke a couple of times. I'm still waiting for my Batman figure, but a Bobo figure would be the peach for sure. I'm going to start a petition. I'm going to do that. I'm going to petition Todd McFarlane. All right, let's have a look at some other stuff you've got going on. This is your website. You're a podcaster, Chad. Oh my God, if I'd known that, I would have to watch out for my own P's and Q's. Oh no.
Not as professional as you. No, it's been going that for, oh my goodness, about 5 or 6 years now. So doing a bunch of different things, writing, fantasy stuff, things like that. You can go to chadcorrie.com and just check out stuff if they're interested. It's also wherever podcasts are available. So internet land, they're all there.
There you go. There is the link. We'll run these later on in the show as well, so you can get it, so you don't have to pause the video and make me look like an idiot. But there you go. Cool. There's a lot of information on here. You've got As The Sparrow Flies, which is what we've been talking about. Rainier's Legacy coming soon in September. May I ask what this is?
You sure can. It's coming out, like I said, September from Dark Horse. It is a short story collection. So it deals with a pragmatically pacifistic bard and his various adventures throughout this world. Yeah, basically he's trying to find, he has all these various challenges, but doesn't want to kill people in the process. So he's getting like highwaymen. He's getting an old flame that has some issues, gets him pulled into some like shenanery there. He has supernatural horrors. He has some other stuff he has to deal with. So there are like 7 different stories. Some of them are comedic, some of them are more horror, some of them are just more action adventure, just kind of day in the life kind of stuff. But again, that was something I wanted to do, something kind of fun and different that I haven't done before. And I think short stories, as we were talking earlier, I got my teeth cut reading on Robert E. Howard, and a lot of the early pulp stuff. And so I thought, because I didn't like reading growing up, and I just found that if I could find little short stories, I thought, oh, I can make myself do it, because a lot of times they had pictures and stuff involved with them too. So, oh, that's not too bad. Then I got into the bigger stuff, and so that's kind of what I want to do with this again. So it's just fun. It's a fun, entertaining process. It comes out in September. I'll be doing some promos and events for that, signings as well, like I'm doing for this book, across basically the Midwest. Nowhere near you, but basically, yeah, there it is right there. It just talks about
nobody's near me. That's the way it works, I'm afraid. That I've been banished from civilization. So that's what it is.
Yeah, it's like it says, there's basically there common, you got old flame, questionable machinations, surprises, yeah, it's horror, adventure, insight, yeah, it's all there. It's a continuation of this same world setting that takes place with this Wizard King trilogy.
Cool.
And it's this fantasy world setting that's kind of like epic fantasy, but also different flavors, so you can take it in however you want to. So
good. And of course, the pièce de resistance right now is As the Sparrow Flies. We've talked about that earlier, so we'll have that on the book, on the show. There it is. Cool.
Yay. Yeah, there it is. And also I just point out, if you want to, you go to the website, chadcorrie.com, or /sparrowflies, or just a general one. There are sample chapters of this book. There will be sample chapters of the short stories. And there are sample audio. This is an audiobook. He does a fabulous guy that read it, Pete Bradbury. He does the voices for a lot of the characters, and he's an actor, so he brings out all the the emotion, the drama when they're fighting. He's like, doing all this stuff. It makes you really get into it. I listened to it because I had to proof it, and I listened to it, and I'm like, this is great. And I'm like binge listening because I thought, this is I wrote the book, and I'm like, this is amazing. And like, so if I got excited, I'm hoping every other else listens to it gets excited too. But yeah, and there's also wallpapers you can download for your devices for this and other books. There's maps and all sorts of fun stuff on the website. Plus, there's a website just for this world setting, not this world setting, but the other world setting, the fantasy one. You can click on there and get a whole bunch of stuff I'm working on. I'm actually building a new website for that. So it's a lot of stuff. Plus podcasts galore. There's all sorts of free podcasts for things. You can, if you want to know more about the mythology, the legends, the lore, how to say things, there's stuff like that on the website as well. Tons of free stuff. And if you're a writer, I'm just going to keep plugging stuff here since again. If you're a writer, go to chadcorrie.com/writersdesk, and there's a bunch of links, podcasts, essays, things like that might be helpful for you. Like you want to know how to get a contract, how to find agents, how to find artists for graphic novels, how to do royalties, how to do the X, Y, and Z. If you're just starting out, because I get asked a lot of questions when I do events and stuff, and I find they're all kind of becoming the same. So I thought I'd just kind of condense them all into one location, just point you to the website, and that's the way you can check it out. So yeah, I'm also updating the website too. Probably in the next few months, there'll be a beautiful, more better looking page, more user friendly too. But yeah,
it's good. It's cool.
Yeah. There's podcasts, there's a podcast down there. Plus, you can download things there. Those are some of the essays and things like that I did. So if you have questions like how to do promotional stuff, how to set up a signing, various things like that. And then again, not that I know everything, obviously, but it's something that people might want to get to start. Because like you were saying, Johnny, we grew up, we didn't really know a lot of information. We didn't have access outside the library, maybe a few select places.
Yeah.
And provide a place for people that can kind of connect and get some information, at least get started on that front.
Yeah, definitely. The easiest way to get a review is just ask somebody. That's how that works.
Yeah.
Find someone with a website and ask, hey, can you look at my book for me, please? That's it. Job done. Yep. Just be mindful that not everybody likes the same sort of thing. So
yes, that worldview again, right?
Yeah, exactly. The amount of people who ask me for reviews, and a good friend of mine actually asked me for a review on their book, and I said, yeah, send it across, thinking nothing of it, and then I read it. I was like, I'm not going to write anything about this book.
You were kind.
Well, sorry. Yeah, apologies. But remember, if you are a fledgling reviewer or a fledgling podcaster, and you think, hey, the machine does this, so I can do this, just remember 2 things. One, your point of view is not everyone's point of view. And 2, nobody wakes up and thinks to themselves, today I'm going to make a really rubbish comic book or novel or video game. All right. So what you're looking at is somebody's hard work there, blood, sweat, and tears. So if you're going to kick it, at least be respectful enough to say why. Don't just say this book sucks.
Yeah.
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 There you go. Those are my 2 cents on reviewing. Yeah.
See?
So there.
Wisdom. See, wisdom with age. You got that nice silvery gray.
Okay. Yeah, fair point. Fair point. When it comes to kind of setting the scene, the inspiration for the characters, where's that come from? Especially in as the Sparrow Flies, you mentioned that young adults aren't your normal modus operandi. Is this because do you have, I suppose, young adults in your life that you think, I'm going to base my characters on these, or is it an amalgam of other characters that you've seen in fiction?
Yeah, that's another good question. When I do stories in general, I guess I just think about this the other day. I seem to be more of like a compare and contrast type of situation, if that makes sense. That seems to work well for me. So usually there's like one system, one component, whatever, and there's always like opposition, because obviously, as you know, if there's no conflict, there's no story.
True.
So you have to have something. Sometimes you put a third component that's kind of in between or kind of combined for other things. You get more complicated, you get 4 or 5. But basically, what I established with this story early on kind of came to me was the idea of this apocalypse. Now, I keep calling it apocalypse, it's more like dystopian, end of the world, whatever. Destruction, bad stuff. They're trying to find themselves, I think, ultimately through the story, if that makes sense. I mean, it sounds kind of metaphysical, but they're trying to figure out who they are, where they believe, what their purpose and place is, I think, ultimately, which is kind of a universal thing, I think, with all human beings. Why are we here? What's going on? What's my purpose?
Especially as kids, especially when we're trying to. I mean, fair enough. When we move into adulthood and we get jobs, we're defined by, by the things that we do. Yeah. Chad the writer, Johnny the teacher, and so on and so forth. These are the definitions by which we stay within our boundaries, I guess. Well, when you're a kid, not only do you have no boundaries, you also have no starting point. It is kind of like instead of having a nice straight line like that, it's all like all over it's like that, isn't it? All over the shop. You just don't know where you're gonna go. So interesting.
Yeah, but
so you're saying that the characters in the book are based on potentially you growing up when you had that kind of world?
No. I took some cultural themes, mixed some things up, as always, kind of visually interesting. Without giving too much away, there's kind of some Amish and some Mennonite stuff in one of the groups, because they're sojourners, and so there's some kind of elements of that where they have, for instance, they kind of speak they speak without contractions, so they have kind of a different meter and flow to their words. So it forces you, as you read it, as the reader, to kind of, oh wait, I got to be a little slower, kind of get the context better. Whereas the other group is kind of more of the militant minded aspect of that. There's the zealotry, that kind of thing. So there's flavor. There's different, I might not get too much of it. There's different flavors and cultural things and stuff in there.
It's a world that's got a diverse culture.
Yeah, that's kind of where I come from. Because I'm close. Yeah. That's kind of
just one mindset. It's it's a bit Logan's Run. There's lots of different bits that do different things and feel different ways, and it's that interaction that causes the conflict and the decisions of what's going to save the world or not save the world.
Yeah, that's kind of, but the twist on it, what I did on it with this book, is that the world can't be saved, maybe. So they're trying to find a way, because the world is dying, right? So now it's like, can you save the world? Can you not save the world? That's the question. So it's like, it's all this sorts of weird stuff you got going on. You're like, okay, so you got to have some juxtaposition and some conflict in there, right? So
this is a 3-book series.
Yes.
And the overarching title could be, "Can the World Be Saved?" This sounds like a really dodgy joke where the punchline's not that good at the end.
No, but
I'm joking.
Yeah. That's where Sojourner Saga came from, because it's the saga of the Sojourners, and as you can tell, it's plural possessive, so it's more than one. So what does that mean? Is this talking about the group we're hearing later on, or is it the people that are tied together, they become so? It's all sorts of stuff that gets played out.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's kind of.
So when I was a kid, I read a book called Empire of the East by Fred Saberhagen, and I absolutely loved this book. It was a world where magic has taken over, but technology was hidden around and stuff. And the first chapter of this book is like a trilogy. The first part was about the guy who found what he called an elephant, and it wasn't an elephant; it was a tank. And then they used the tank to take on the evil satrap. And I absolutely loved this book. This first part of this book was brilliant, and I was so looking forward to this next part. And then I was open part 2, and the character wasn't even in it. It was like a different element of the war. And I'm thinking, what? And by the time I got to the third part, I was thinking, oh, well, this is just going to be a continuation. I don't think I finished it because the characters that I bought into early doors kind of migrated away from the story. You know, it's kind of like watching Star Wars without Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia. You know, there's a reason why those are in the last 3 movies, because if they're not, no one else is watching them.
Exactly.
I didn't say that, Disney. Don't say me.
Exactly. But yeah, absolutely.
That's a risk you run if you talk about different aspects of the same world. How do you sort of combat that to make sure that, without giving too much away, the reader stays involved through that journey?
Yeah, well, the story is always going to be told through these 2 protagonists, Sarah and Elliot.
Oh, cool.
What changes is in how, like I said, how they experience the world, and you get it's multiple POV basically. So you have you get to experience as they go along what's going on around them. That's where you get that adult perspective, and it brings many kind of say, okay, this is going on in the background, and then everything kind of comes to a head closer and closer. So you kind of seen everyone's viewpoint a little bit, but obviously the main focus point is on the main characters and how they choose to interact with each other and the story as they progress. Basically, the first story. A little dark, maybe a little gritty, but it's establishing the beginnings of the whole series. And I think from what I've heard so far, people have been enjoying it. So I think that's a good sign. Again, everything is subjective. So
is it on Amazon? Let's have a quick look whilst
well, hasn't got any reviews yet because it just came out last week, which is unfortunate. But on Goodreads, I got 1. But
let's have a quick look whilst we'll do it live. As the Sparrow Flies.
Yeah. Which is weird because sometimes it takes a long time to get things clicked on there. I haven't quite figured that marketing part out yet of that Amazon.
Let me have a quick look. I'm having found it. Let's have a look.
Oh, you on the Goodreads now, or the?
No, I'm on Amazon. See if anyone's reviewed it yet.
Not yet that I'm aware of.
Oh, all right. Okay. Let me. I'm not sure if there are some published stuff on this. Let's share the screen and we'll go from there. Share it. So these are the things that people have been saying about the book.
That's a different book. That's not this book.
Is it not?
He put the old reviews up there. Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh,
that's how they promoted it.
Now, isn't it? All right. Okay. Let's see about the author. No.
If you want the current reviews, they're actually on the website. I was talking about reviews from people that actually read it, like real readers, not like reviewers.
Okay. I apologize.
No, I should explain that. My fault.
No, it's cool. It's cool. But if you check it out on Amazon, you can see the page there. Just go to Amazon, type As The Sparrow Flies. You get some more information about the types of writing and type of books you've done previously. So that could be a great starting point to someone to think, oh, okay. You know, because if you're writing world-building books, complex characters, well, that you can do that with young adult as much as you can with other. In fact, I'd say it's even more important with young adults because you've got to, people have got to find their feet and find their ideas of who they are somewhere. And if you're giving people a worldview and they can look at, they can decide, well, you know what, I agree with Elliot, or I agree with the other guy, or I agree with this guy, and it helps, and as it's a parable to what's going on in our world with the environmental change. And this great disaster that happened, I'm hoping it's not a disaster that happens in November.
Yeah.
Take that as you like. I don't mind. I'm British, so I like. Just saying. Then it has that impact. So I think it's a great place to start if you want to have, if you're new to your writing. It's a great place for people to check out for sure.
Yeah, and it's like I said, if people that are fantasy hesitant, you want to get into a story, but maybe you don't want to read about orcs or goblins or magic or dragons. Yeah, if you're fantasy hesitant, this is a great way to kind of introduce yourself to the different world setting. And if you like things like like Mad Max or things like that, the movie, I'm not going to say it's as gritty as and dark and weird as Mad Max, but there are elements of that that kind of play out and tie into that kind of flavor.
I have to say, now you brought Mad Max up, I have to say they do my head in those movies. It's like they never run out of petrol. In a desolate world, they never run out of petrol or bullets. Why is that?
I read somewhere, I heard it on YouTube of all places. Someone actually went and studied. There's a place called Bullet Town, and they somehow manufacture bullets from human excrement. I don't know how they do that. I have no idea, but somehow where they get the casings, I have no idea.
That's a pile of crap, that, man.
Yeah. But it's like, okay, yeah, but yeah, it's like, yeah, tons of bullets. They have rockets. They have explosive spears. They have, okay, yeah, all right.
Where do you get the petrol? All right. All right, so where can you find the book? Well, it's dead simple. You can head over to Chad Corrie's webpage. There it is, chadcorrie.com. We've put the link in there for the Sparrow Flies in there. The main page is that one. From there, you can dive into a plethora. There's a word. A plethora of Chad's works and podcasts, maps, as you saw earlier, hints and tips about how to get in on the business. And for all you social media hounds, Chad is on Facebook, Insta, and Twitter. Yes, I call it Twitter. No, I'm never going to call it X. Get over it.
I'm also going to say, too, it's available in stores as audio as well, Waterstones all over the place in the States as well. So you can get access to that, too, the ebook, print, audio, whatever your preference is.
Let me just... So, yeah, absolutely. So the ISBN numbers, I can do that for you now if you give me 2 seconds, because I'm nice like that. If you want to order the book, you can check out your local bookstore. I'll put both ISBNs on there so you can see them. There is the 10 and the 13-digit one. I imagine that's for different regions. So there you go. Check it out. Just pop down to your local bookstore, give them the title, give them the ISBN number, and then they'll be able to order that in for you if it's not on the shelf as we speak.
Thank you. Yeah.
There we go. Cool. How quick was that? That was
very good. Yeah.
The 43 minutes have gone. How quick was that episode?
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Hopefully, it was worth your time. So.
Oh, definitely. Always worth my time speaking to passionate creators about the stuff that they do. It's absolutely, for me, one of the funnest pods I do, primarily because I get to talk to people who create stuff. It's great.
Cool.
And you know what? You guys, people who create books, comics, music, whatever it is, I've always got time to listen to the creative process, to see your points of view, and go from there. So I thank you for your time, definitely.
Well, yeah, question for you now. Do you detect, is there a Minnesota accent that you notice when I speak? I'm always curious about that.
No, you said Minnesota right at the start, so I was like, okay, cool.
So you didn't hear like an accent or anything when I'm just kind of curious how it comes across. Okay.
I think I read it somewhere as well on the web page that you're Minnesotian.
Minnesota.
I know Boston. I know Boston. Is that Boston? Boston.
Yeah.
Boston.
You know Jesse Ventura, right?
Who?
Jesse Ventura. He's from Minnesota. That's a Minnesota accent. Wrestler. Was the governor of Minnesota? Okay.
No, I don't. Look at my grey hair.
He was in Predator. He was in Predator.
Oh, so was Jean-Claude Van Damme, but I don't know French. I apologize.
No, I'm just kind of curious. It's always kind of funny.
No. Who else do I know? There's another writer that I speak to quite frequently. He's from Minnesota, and he has a Green Bay Packers poster on his wall. I'm like, why do you have that on your wall? It's like, what's going on?
So what's the difference now? Rugby is it more faster paced?
So it's different. So rugby doesn't have downs.
Okay.
The ball can't be passed forward. It can only be kicked forward. It has to go laterally or backwards.
Okay.
There's more players on the rugby pitch than there is in an American football pitch, and it's the same team. So the same 15 play offense and defense. Whereas in American football, you can
switch them out.
Yeah, switch out your offense for your defense and so on.
Very cool. So it's actually it sounds like a more faster paced, maybe more.
It wouldn't be. It is faster paced. It's over quicker. It's about 80 minutes, and it lasts about 80 minutes. Because over here, the networks don't control the sports. So in football, what happens, or what I'm led to believe, you're the expert. You're American. When the ball goes out of bounds, or when the ball touches the ground, or there's a change of possession, there's a timeout on the field. So at which point, network said, "Hey, we can put an advert in there," and then that kind of elongates the game rather than letting the teams just turn around and carry on. It's like
you're gonna make their money. Actually, it ends up being, I think, at least 2.5 hours, sometimes longer for the game. It's just like
I love American football. I love American football more than rugby, but that's a me thing. So
that's cool. I didn't know that. Very cool. Another Minnesota Viking fan. You're the second person, like I said, outside of the state.
Miami Dolphins fan. I'm just being nice to you.
That makes sense. I was gonna say, why do you like the Vikings?
I don't. my stepson has a Vikings hoodie. I take the mickey out. And my wife enjoyed the Netflix quarterback show. It had Kirk Cousins in.
Okay.
And she was really quite impressed with Kirk Cousins. She didn't like Patrick Mahomes because his voice got on her nerves. So
this is kind of fun. So what is the perception? So do you perceive it is more entertaining, the American football, than your native sports, or what's the draw? I guess what's the entertainment factor for you?
For me, strategy. It's more entertaining. It started off as a curiosity when I was a kid. I wanted to know what was going on, and then I got into it. And then Dan Marino, and from there on in, I was hooked.
Very cool.
The whole strategy. It's now it gets to the point where I watch a ball game on TV with my wife, and I'll say, watch the safeties taking 2 steps up. The receiver on the right is going to try and go on a post pattern. Just watch what happens, and sure enough, the safety goes up. The guys will go on a post pattern.
So you could be a coach. I could put the little clipboard up and you talk, so I can't see.
Yeah. 157 and 52. Outlast on 3. Ready.
You can do it, man. Yeah. So how do they get on cable over there, or how do they show it?
We've digressed massively. It's on what would be cable. It's satellite TV over here. Sky TV have exclusivity, although you can get on the street, you can get a streaming app to get all the games. So
very cool. Very cool.
Right, now that we're done talking football, Chad, I'm going to let you go and get on with the rest of your day. Yes. As you can tell, for me, it's wine o'clock. So
yes.
Sorry.
Enjoy your evening, sir. I do appreciate your time and just talking and camaraderie here. Hopefully it's beneficial for you. If you need anything else from me, let me know.
Oh, we will. So, guys, don't forget to check out the websites. You saw the links from earlier. I'll put them back up again because we have digressed a little bit. There you go. There's the main one. Check it out. You want to order the book? Those are the ISBN numbers. There you go. Cool. Excellent. Brilliant. Chad, thank you again for all your time, man. I really do appreciate it.
Same here. Thank you, sir. Have a great evening.
You too. Don't forget to check out the new CPM for all your favorite shows. Chad picked the trailer for it earlier. The Crisis in the Toyverse. If you like him stuff Marvel, check out the No Price podcast. Yes, I know X-Men 97's over. There is more Marvel stuff coming, I'm sure. For you DC fans, it's the Definitive Crusade. And if you like your comics a little bit older, it's the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. Check out the newest episode, which is Team Up Terrors. There you go. Check it out. I'm not saying there's a lot of Batman in that one, but there's a lot of Batman in that one. All right. Chad, once again, thanks. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I have been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.shop, all about comic pop culture.